So good afternoon.
Hello.
I'm Ashwini Prasad, Senior Business Banking Relationship Manager at M&T Bank. Welcome to Next Steps for Law Firms and Entrepreneurs. To begin, I'd like to introduce attorney and entrepreneur Rhonda Binder, who specializes in working with technology startups and corporate clients. She has been an awardee of the Queen's Chamber Business Leader of the Year and will kick off the program with us. Rhonda?
Thank you, Ashwini, New York's dedicated business banking relationship manager. And congratulations on your receipt for a recent citation from New York State for providing outstanding community service. Kudos to you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for zooming in. We've brought together a team of experts in their fields to cover the top items we need to think and plan for when we reopen our firms and businesses. Our presenters come from an important array of industries who focus on working with law firms in their respective fields. We're covering topics including the PPP loan forgiveness, labor and employment, cybersecurity, marketing, and relationship building with banks. Each presenter will provide relevant expert information and will be available for Q&A. The program was distributed throughout New York and meant to bring us together in various counties for the benefit of the law and business community during a critical time in our global history. It's meant to provide a virtual space for exchange of key information and cross-networking within the various law and business support organizations in New York, and intended to also become a series. We noted that Connecticut attorneys and bar associations all across New York enrolled as sponsors, including the Queens County Bar, the Metropolitan Black Bar, the Network of Bar Leaders, the LGBT Bar of New York, the Hellenic Law Association, the South Asian and Indo-Caribbean Bar Association, the South Asian Bar Association, the Brandeis Association, and the Westchester County Bar Association. Thank you very much, especially to M&T Bank and Anshin organizers, all of our business sponsor, and especially the Queens Chamber of Commerce for their phenomenal support. We will open the program with remarks by Queens and Bronx business representatives. It's with great pleasure that I have the opportunity to introduce Mr. Tom Santucci of Gateway Investments. Tom's experience in the field of financial planning and wealth management has spanned over 16 years, having handled investment portfolios of various sizes. Tom's approach to investment management is ingrained in the company and his colleagues of a culture of transparency, openness, and trust that's evident in the way Gateway Investments handles each and every account. He's worked with many great institutions, including Smith Barney, now Morgan Stanley Wealth Management, UBS Financial Services, and also worked in conjunction with the Wharton School of Business. Prior to working in the financial services industry, Tom also practiced law for 12 years and was a managing partner at that. He also comes from a strong pedigree of legal minds, with his father also serving as the former Queens DA. So it's with great pleasure that I'd like to offer Tom the floor to provide the opening remarks. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you very much, Rhonda. Thank you, everyone, for attending. I've made a decision after hearing Rhonda speak that from now on, I'm going to use her to introduce me every time. Thank you very much. And I'd like to thank M&T Bank for sponsoring this today also. The Queens County Chamber of Commerce. I've been the chairman of the chamber for the past 2 years. And we are an umbrella organization of about 1,200 businesses in Queens County. Our role in the chamber is to promote business among our membership, develop and implement programs designed to help and encourage businesses throughout Queens County and throughout New York City. We advocate on behalf of the business community. Every year we travel up to Albany and we have a special Queens Day in Albany, and we meet with all the legislators, and we have an agenda of those items that are important to the business people within the city. And we serve as a resource to our members. It's amazing how often someone will reach out and say, how would I go about doing this? Or can you help me with this? Or so mundane as, hey, I can't get hooked up my electric at Con Edison. Can you do something? We get involved in everything. We try to cut through red tape, and we try to promote business being business. In this particular forum today, law firms and entrepreneurs, I'm actually a little bit of both. I've been an attorney for 25 years. Matter of fact, it's a little more than 25 years. I actually handle the endowment fund for my law school. And Professor Miller, I went to Touro Law School. I was the first graduating class. And then I evolved into the business end, and I now run my own investment firm, Gateway Investments. If it were not for the legal background, I wouldn't be able to succeed with what I'm doing today. It's invaluable, and people tend to not realize the importance of having a legal background or having an attorney to help you through the myriad issues that businesses face. So I think this is a great forum. I congratulate you, Rhonda, for moderating this today. And I thank everyone for attending. If there's anything the Queen's Chamber could do, please reach out to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your leadership, Tom. And so we partnered, as you see, across New York City and across the state in some regards. And I wanted to also introduce a few of our partners that are working so hard with the businesses in the Bronx. And they are just doing phenomenal work. And we're so lucky to have them here today. Raphael A. Roger is the Executive Director of SBA's 504 Lending for the Business Initiative Corporation, BICNI. BICNI was founded in 1998 and helps entrepreneurs and companies gain access to private and public funding around New York State. Raphael represents the Borough of the Bronx and 5 business improvement districts and is a member of the Brooklyn Hispanic Chamber. And immediately following Raphael, we'll have Clarence also give us remarks. Mr. Stanley is the director of the Small Business Development Center at Lehman College, go CUNY, and also board of directors of the Bronx Overall Economic Development Corporation. The BOEDC works to assist Bronx-based businesses in their expansion and encourages additional businesses to open and relocate to Bronx County. They also manage the Bronx Initiative for Energy and the Environment. So I would love to have our colleagues from the Bronx, please give us a sense of what you're seeing there. And I'd like to start if Mr. Roger would like to take the floor.
Good morning, Rhonda. I want to thank
Hi
you
there.
for having us here. We work very hard to get the Bronx to not be the Bronx that everyone remembers, but be a new Bronx that is growing and more inclusive than ever. So just to give you an idea of what we do, my organization also sits as part of BOEDC. We are the SBA portion of that, but then they also do, like you said, energy. They help businesses to expand, as well as we also do this for companies throughout the state. If you're looking to hire, if you're looking to do recruitment drives, when we could do job fairs, you could call us up and we could connect you with New York State. And we have a New York State office within our office as well. We also have the Bronx Tourism Council, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's tourism through economic development, which works with Arthur Avenue, the Botanical Gardens, the zoo, to try and get people not just to visit those places, but also try and hit the restaurants and get experiences they wouldn't normally have, just looking to go to one institution. As far as what we're seeing right now, it would be the technical assistance portion of this is huge. I don't want to step too much on Clarence's toes because he'll be talking about this too, but we need, we've seen it from the people that are sitting in the Bronx terminal market to the mom and pop of trying to get them ready for expansion. Maybe they're looking because they realize there's a new way for them to be able to expand their business throughout this pandemic. So now we're trying to get them into the right hands, and that's really what my job is to do. It's not always money, it's the technical assistance, it's getting them in front of the chamber, a community board, just like what the chamber does, and making sure that these people can continue to thrive and to expand their businesses. So I want to just hand it over to Clarence Stanley.
Okay.
We're at the SBDC.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, technical assistance, you touched right on the head. We've got a big problem in the Bronx and tried to, I guess you call it bridging the gap, getting access to capital. I'm a retired banker, although you're never retired. I started a second career at Lehman College. I've been there for 20 years, and we've been successful in bringing about $150 million in economic development in the community. but I still nowhere near what needs to happen in our community. There is a gap. There's income inequalities. We didn't get on the PPPs, the IDLs, and so forth. The Bronx did not get its fair share. Well, and it's because of technical assistance and getting the word out. And that's what we need to work right now. That's why I'm happy to be part of these township forums, to get the information out to clients, let them know that we're here providing services. We are part of Small Business Administration. We work with all the banks. As they mentioned, I'm on the board of Raphael, the BOEDC, and we work with all our partners in the Bronx, Sobro, the Bronx Chamber, and so forth, and to try and make a difference. So the income inequality, the gap, I'm hoping that we can do our part to make things happen. And thank you so much for hosting this event. By the way, some of my partners are on. I have SBDCs at York College and one at LaGuardia, but we got 6 throughout New York City. And we're all, I think we're all on this call. Thank you.
Thank you for being here and for all the great assistance you are providing our law firms and our businesses. And we will have an opportunity to ask more specific questions towards the end of the program. Thank you for taking the time to be here with us. And so to give you a little bit of a overview of the program, it's sort of like, I don't know if any of you have been engaging in HIIT workouts and working out from home in addition to working from home. But this is what we're going to do today. We're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 punch on various topics that I mentioned, and we're going to start with one of the most popular topics that we've just touched on briefly, and that's the PPP loan. We're so lucky to have Stephen D. Lando here today, who's a tax partner and tax lender of the firm's financial services group at Anshin. He also has over 30 years there and is a founding member of and co-managing partner of the firm's law firm practice group. The team manages a wide array of law firms, including both partnerships and PCs. Steve has lectured on various topics, including on banks, law firms, real estate companies, professional development organizations, and his writings have been featured in publications, including the New York Law Journal and Law Office Administrator. He's previously served on the state and local and interstate taxation committees for the New York State Society of Certified Public Accountants. So Steve will discuss what's next for SBA PPP loan forgiveness, and we'll have a short Q&A following that, moderated by Ashvini. Thank you very much, Stephen, for being here today.
Rhonda, thanks for the introduction, and hopefully everybody can hear me. So a couple of things. I really want to focus primarily on the recent guidance, the applications, and really, very importantly, the items that are still unknown to us today. And let's face it, there are a lot of items that are still, unfortunately, unknown. And there are things that we feel are known, and yet I still question them. And we're going to discuss all of that. I'm not going to talk about the very recent June 26 guidance concerning fishing boat owners. So please don't swamp the website with questions on that. I know that's, clearly something on many people's mind here. Also, just from a disclaimer point of view, everything I'll talk about today is pretty much up to date through June 30th. I will mention something very, very recent that has occurred, but in no way, shape, or form is anything that I'm discussing to be construed as a client relationship. And basically that any of the determinations you make with regard to your forgiveness applications is really your responsibility. So for those of you who aren't aware, the actual application program for the loan expired just yesterday, June 30th. And many of you may remember when this first came about and the first applications were accepted April 3rd, there was $349 billion in the program, and then they added in another $310 billion when that was running out quickly. As of last night, there's still $138 billion left in the program for unclaimed loans. So everyone who originally rushed to the gate and missed opportunities as we got more and more guidance, the funding did not run out. So at this point, for firms, possibly your clients, Congress is actually now talking about extending the application process for the loan, which, you know, when you think about it, it's really great for those who haven't applied. Unfortunately, most of us these days have applied. All right, so let's talk about some of the things we learned very recently. So June 5th, the Flexibility Act passed. Senate adopted exactly what the House had proposed. And the key point to this was many people had been complaining 8 weeks is just not enough time. We may not be open, or you can't run a business based on 8 weeks. It makes no sense. And ultimately, the House put through 24 weeks as an alternative to the 8-week covered period. So you were still able to use 8 weeks if you were eligible, but now you can use 24 weeks, more importantly, up to 24 weeks. They dropped the payroll test percentage from 75% to 60%. They extended the full-time equivalent restitution period from June 30th until December 31st. And, you know, they've also created an extension. If you weren't forgiven and there was still an amount of a loan, you had 5 years to repay that instead of the original 2. But the reality, I think, is with the extended period and the dropping of payroll to 60%, there's going to be a lot less businesses out there that are going to look to ultimately have any type of loan because they should be able to forgive this. One of the key issues that many businesses had, if they were issuing financial statements, and even to an extent as to the tax returns, was a question of when, for instance, this loan would really be forgiven from a timing point of view. And only in mid-June, the AICPA put out some guidance basically saying that it's possible this will be treated as forgiven when the SBA theoretically approves this, or when the loan actually is paid, because until the SBA approves it, it is actually on your books as a loan, or it could be treated as a grant that will be picked up in income as expenses are paid, or it could be an unconditional type of grant, which basically would get added into capital. And since I'm really a tax guy and not an audit guy, that's all I'm going to say about the financial statements. But that was important. Even think about a law firm partnership where you have changes in partners occurring. If forgiveness occurs in year 2, but expenses were in year 1, you know, you could have a timing issue there as to what relates between the partners. Okay. We wound up getting additional applications. The original app dropped May 15th, and then we got the revised applications June 16th, tailored towards the Flexibility Act, which again includes the fact you could do 8 or 24 weeks, and there's actually an easy form that was included. It's literally a one-pager as compared to several pages that are in the regular type of form, and you could use that providing you meet certain particular requirements. All right, so the way the new rules work, basically, anyone who received their loan prior to June 5th can elect to use the 8-week period instead of the 24-week period. One of the early questions was, well, if I can't use 8 weeks, am I forced to use 20 weeks? Because what if I really could expend all the funds in 10 weeks? But now I want to possibly lay off people after the 10-week period, after I've exhausted the funds. And what we did learn now is that between the application dropping and the additional guidance that had come out June 23rd, basically, you don't have to wait to the expiration of either of the new covered periods, the 8 or the 24-week periods. You can file that application before the expiration. There are some things you just have to be aware, but also keep in mind, this is now July 1st. The applications basically came out a couple of weeks ago. We do not yet have a bank that's ready to start accepting applications at this point. I think the earliest the banks are looking at is probably mid-July, and hopefully there will be no additional guidance issued that would impact the applications. But I'm hoping there is still some additional guidance to come, and we will talk about that. Also, upon submission of the application, the SBA, it's 60 days for the lender to approve the application, and it's 60 days from full submission. So full submission means all the required documents have to be attached, not just, filling out the boxes. 60 days for the bank to notify the SBA as to their determination on forgiveness. The SBA has 90 days to approve that and ultimately pay the bank for that forgiveness, getting you off the hook of the loan. So it could theoretically be a 5-month period until you actually have the full approval with regard to forgiveness, okay? Then in addition, right now, the lenders, you do have a period. Let's say if the lender decides that the forgiveness is ineligible or some of it is denied, you've got a 30-day appeals process with a lender. There's nothing that we know of right now for the SBA insofar as an appeals process if the SBA turns it down. And remember, they're going to fully review the 30,000 loans that are, in excess of $2 million. So we just right now, we don't have an answer. Will that change? Hopefully the answer is yes. With regard to the EZ form, in order to use the EZ form, you've got to have had no employees below $100,000 of compensation who had a reduction of more than 25%, and you could not have had a reduction of full-time equivalents. If either of those apply, you're not going to be able to use that form. You've got to use the full form. And also, one of the things we learned, if you have a salary reduction in excess of 25% because you had to cut back people's hours, so now you've also got a reduction in full-time equivalents, you will not be hit twice. You will not be double penalized on that piece. Okay. When the flexibility came act extending this to 24 weeks, we got new caps for employees. The new caps for employees basically works out to the 2450 seconds, which is approximately $46,154. What we still don't know is, let's say instead of 24 weeks, my application is going to be 12 weeks, and that's when I've expended my funds. Does that mean my cap is now 1/2 of the $46,000, or are they still somehow going to leave it? My guess is it's 46,000, but again, we have no information on it, and that's before the healthcare and retirement non-cash benefits. On May 22nd and June 23rd, we got additional guidance on owner employees. So notwithstanding, at 24 months, the compensation piece goes from $15,385 to $46,154. If an owner employee is using the 24-week period, the compensation piece only goes from $15,385 to $20,833. And what we also found out is that the owner employees are going to be a little bit more penalized with regard to this. So there are very different rules on how you calculate their compensation with regard to the non-cash costs and what else has to be impacted for the owner employees. And like, if anyone out there is an S Corp, it doesn't distinguish between a 2% owner and a less than 2% owner, which is part of the S Corp fringe benefit rules. It basically just says this is what it is. Some of the key things that we just don't know right now, so I can try and wrap this up. Basically, there are still questions as to the concept of paid versus incurred. So for instance, when you look at the form themselves, the form says paid or incurred. You look at the instructions to the forms and the forms say paid. We still don't have answers as to certain prepaid. So for instance, there are rules with regard to paid or paid and incurred. If I pay something, but it straddles the period at the very beginning of the covered loan period or the covered forgiveness period, does paid mean I get the whole thing or I don't? And I have to then use the alternative payroll covered period, for example, which starts at the very next payroll week. That's for weekly and bi-weekly payers. So right now are the big questions. The FTE restoration period. If I haven't laid anybody off and I file, can I then lay people off? The answer is we think right now you can, but the SBA does have the ability to come back and look for more information. And keep in mind, you're going to have to keep information even if not submitted. If you wind up, can I just use all payroll costs in order to do this? Is there a downside, or do I have to use anything else? The answer is you can. There could be a different downside if you're looking at certain credits, etc. Prepaids, we can do certain prepayments for things other than payroll costs, like rent, utilities, etc. Utilities, oil was excluded. Why? We still don't know. Transportation, we still don't know what that is from the point of view of one of the, non-cash or non-payroll type expenses that are in there. And in addition, we still don't have an answer to the big question of double dipping. If any of you remember when Treasury came out and said, any loan that is forgiven, the expenses under a particular code section would not be deductible. Within 18 hours, Senate, Congress chairs of the House Ways and Means and the Senate Ways and Means committees came out and said, no, Treasury, you've overstepped. We fully intended there to be a double dipping. And when we say a double dipping, we expressly said the forgiveness amount is exempt, and we did not say that has any impact on the expenses. And if we didn't want it to be exempt and expenses to be deductible, we didn't have to say anything. You would have gotten to the same place. So they immediately came out and overstepped. Mnuchin came back and said, look, this is how the law works. You don't want it to be like this, then you change the law. So this is now July 1st. That's still an open issue. And the worry is that if Congress does not fix that in a near term, they're going to run out of steam in order to get that corrected. Listen, not the worst case. You got this money in order to pay the expenses, but it was certainly much better, and it might have led you to different choices that you were making if you knew the expenses were not going to be deductible. Okay, so I think that's primarily the highlights of what I wanted to get through at this point in time.
I think, Stephen, we have room for one question.
Sure.
Just re-clarifying, you mentioned the employee-owner compensation. Can you elaborate on the differences between the various entity types?
Okay, sure. So C Corps, S Corps, sole proprietorships, and partners, active partners in a partnership. So again, 8 weeks, 15,385, 24 weeks, 20,833. However, if you're a C Corp owner right now, it appears that on top of those limits, you get to add in your share of healthcare, your share of retirement. On an S Corp owner, you only get to add in your share of retirement. You do not get to add in healthcare. And if you think about it, a 2% S Corp shareholder, healthcare is supposed to be included in their W-2, hence it's already in their compensation. So there is it makes a little sense with regard to that, but that isn't true for a 1% S Corp owner, it's true for a 2%. On a sole proprietor, it's basically the 2019 net income figure, no healthcare, no retirement, because there was no reduction. Those are separately stated items. And then for general or active partners in a partnership, not only do you not get retirement, not only do you not get healthcare, you have to also reduce your self-employment income by the 179 expense, any unreimbursed partner business expenses that the firm didn't deduct and you did on your personal return, and then that gets multiplied by the self-employment rate of 92.35%, which interestingly enough, the Schedule C sole proprietor is also subject to, but they don't have that limit in what their comp figure is. So it goes C Corp, you're at your best, partners are at their worst in terms of these
Thank you, Stephen. On to you, Rhonda. We will take additional questions for Stephen after. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephen. And I can imagine that in the future of the series, we may have to have a standalone program just covering the developments on PPP. So thank
Yeah,
you
what
for
I
that.
covered today was normally about an hour's worth of time. Okay, so.
Thank you. Thank you. And so moving on to our next topic, there are sometimes sticky issues regarding employment and labor during these times. And we're so lucky to have Meredith R. Miller, who is a business and employment attorney and legal educator. As you heard, she is a professor of law at Touro College at the Jacob Fuchsberg Law Center, and she's the founder and principal of Miller Law PLLC. Meredith is also past president of the LGBT Bar Association and Foundation of Greater New York, Legal, and she continues to serve on the board of directors. Currently, she is president of the Network of Bar Leaders. Her scholarly papers are widely cited in influential law journals and leading law school casebooks. Her writing focuses on contract, employment, and business law, and she's lectured on these topics all throughout the world. Meredith will focus on what employers need to know reopening their businesses during the upcoming weeks with regards to labor and employment. So we would love to welcome Meredith now to share the latest in labor and employment law. Thank you so much, Meredith.
Thank you, Rhonda, for that introduction. I agree with Thomas that I should have you introduce me all the time. And I also appreciate you setting this up as a HIIT workout, because it's something I do. And I know, as Stephen mentioned, that what I'm about to try to capture very quickly is hours and hours of material. So what I've been asked to do is highlight some of the considerations for employers during reopening and for operating during the pandemic. The big caveat to begin with is all very industry specific once you really look at it, right? Because the concerns for law firms or tech companies are not going to be entirely the same as restaurants or hair salons. And so the most important thing is to go to the CDC website and also the New York website. It's forward.ny.gov, and you'll see there detailed and industry specific guidelines about mandatory measures and best practices to take in the workplace. So these remarks, to condense them, have been informed by some of the inquiries I've been fielding from small business owners. Touro, where I teach, we have a pro bono COVID hotline, and I've been talking to a lot of small business owners about employment concerns, as well as other things, but I try to inform this by the questions that I've been hearing as a recurring theme. The first thing is really concerns about who should return to work. And when I say return to work, I mean that in two ways. One is, what if we keep some people telecommuting and some come physically into the office? And I'll use the office as a paradigm, even though some of the businesses on the call might not be centered in offices. But who should we keep telecommuting? Or a related question is, well, what if we can't bring everybody back and we need to lay some people off? How do we decide who to fire? And in that there's also questions about, can we require testing? So the Americans with Disabilities Act, which I'll refer to as the ADA, limits an employer's ability to make disability-related inquiries and to require medical examinations of employees. There is an exception where an employee will pose a direct threat to the workplace. And so we got very recent, and when I say recent, just like Stephen said, there's changes by the day, but recent EEOC guidance, and it says that employers may require a COVID test before an employee returns to work, and may require a temperature check to enter into the office, but may not require an antibody test. And so in thinking about who comes back, right, one thing you want to avoid is age discrimination claims. So I'd say do not decide that all the younger folks can come back because they're at a lower risk of dying from COVID. That risks then an age discrimination claim. Also, you want to avoid disability discrimination claims. So don't decide that all the employees who have comorbidities, for example, all the obese employees or all of the employees with diabetes or heart disease, oh, they can't come back. That could then open up liability for disability discrimination. The better practice is to avoid discrimination claims, let the employee self-identify. Avoid direct medical inquiries and inquire of the employees whether they're comfortable returning to work without asking whether this is due to age or chronic illness. The ADA requires an employer to engage in an interactive process to determine whether accommodations here, for example, maybe working from home constitutes a reasonable accommodation. And so the best advice here is engage in that process with your employees, also to avoid OSHA problems as well. And when I say OSHA problems, that's where I say any one of these things could be a much longer segment. If an employee raises safety concerns about coming back to work, engage in an interactive process with them and remain emphatic that the workplace safety is a priority. And even if not legally required, allowing an employee to work from home or taking leave of absence may be the best course to maintain goodwill and avoid a lawsuit. If you're not bringing everybody back, and some people are going to be let go, make sure you document the business rationales. That'll help you later rebut any claims of discrimination if later an employee alleges the choices were made in a discriminatory fashion or they weren't brought back because it was discrimination. The other thing I keep getting is, what duty do we have? What do we have to do to keep employees safe? Employers have a basic legal duty to keep their employees safe. How do you do that? Well, you need here to minimize the risk of transmission of COVID-19. And again, the best source for the standard here is going to be the CDC and New York guidelines. So I would look, and they're written industry specific, at what are the mandatory and best practices for your industry. Some of this has become our conventional wisdom in this new world we're in. Employees should wear masks. You should provide those to employees. We know they need to be distanced, especially indoors. And the distance we've been told is 6 feet apart. The CDC has suggested re-engineering the workplace, rearranging desks, getting rid of break rooms, common areas, closing out water fountains, water coolers, shared spaces, limiting the number of people in the elevator, if it's a building with an elevator, making traffic in the hallways one way, plexiglass dividers for reception. These are things you may have seen even mentioned in popular media outlets, so I won't belabor them here. Again, check with the CDC in New York is either mandating or suggesting as a best practice. This relates back to one thing that we see, which is recommending temperature checks of employees. Again, that can be done without violating the ADA, but remember that some of your employees may have COVID and they may not have a temperature. So what some employers are doing is requiring employees to answer a questionnaire before they come back. And there's apparently mobile apps to do this with, which just say, are you aware of being exposed? Do you have shortness of breath? Do you have a cough? And answering a series of questions before they come in the building. This relates to sick leave policies and to really thinking about those and what you have in place and what you might put in place. I mean, obviously employees with paid sick leave are more likely than those without to come back to work, even if they're sick. And so it may be a time to revisit sick leave policies and think about maybe the cost of that policy is worth it, because if one employee comes to work because that's the only way they're going to get paid and they're sick, they infect all of your employees or a good number of them at one, that's a much larger potential cost. No more handshakes or high fives, right? So I've been hearing, well, what do we do if we find out someone's infected? Inform those who may have been exposed to the infected employee immediately have the infected employee self-quarantine 14 days. I would maintain the infected employee's confidentiality, not share the employee's name, it's not necessary. So then I hear, well, do we have to pay the employee while they're in quarantine? This is also a complicated one. The answer is maybe. It's not a quick answer. It depends on the size of your business, the net income. My guess for this audience, without knowing entirely, at most it's 5 paid 6 days required by law. Of course, I say revisit sick leave policies, maybe think about being more generous than what the law requires. Well, do I have to keep the employee's job for them while they're in quarantine? Right? Again, also a complicated question. The answer is maybe. Again, depends on the size of the business, how long the employee has worked for the company, right? But here a minimum is going to be 5 unpaid days you have to keep their job at a minimum, no matter the size of the business or how long the employees work there. What happens if someone gets COVID and claims they got it at work? Or they die and their family wants to sue? As of mid-June, only aware of 14 wrongful death suits that are COVID related. They're against big companies like Walmart, Tyson Foods, Royal Caribbean. The Walmart case is instructive. It's in Illinois. A state of a worker died, sued for negligence, and willful and wanton misconduct. The main thing to take away there is the claim is all based around the argument that Walmart failed to take the measures suggested by the CDC and OSHA. So again, check those requirements. Look, usually if a worker is hurt at work, workers' comp is what is going to apply. It's going to shield the employer from liability. Plus, realize there's a big challenge here where the worker has to show, I got sick at work. And we know with this virus, that might be a hard thing to isolate. There has been concerns that employers will have liability here. There's been a call in Washington, it's mostly Republican led, to give employers immunity from COVID-related litigation. That has not yet passed. I don't know that it will, but some states, a few, have some form of immunity. New York is not one of them. So that leads to sort of the next and last question I'll address that I keep hearing, which is, should we have the employees sign COVID waivers? Waivers meaning that if they get sick or if they die, they waive the right for them or their estate to sue their employer. I am not so keen on these. I'm not sure if they're enforceable, right? Traditionally, they're completely disfavored in the employment context. There's an imbalance of bargaining power. Employers have a lot more bargaining power than employees, so it looks to be coercive. And it's likely, again, that the claim would be a workers' comp claim, and that is something you can't waive as an employee. So really the only real risk is that the employer argues that the employee argues, see, I'm trying not to talk too fast. The employee argues that the employer, in an attempt to bypass workers' comp laws, was intentionally or grossly negligent in how they operated the workplace and in their complete lack of concern for safety. In that instance, I don't think the waiver has likely enforcement power either, because courts really don't like the idea of employers sort of just writing themselves out of laws that require basic levels of safety. So, or anyone for that matter. So I would say, look, employers could consider doing this. I know some employers are, knowing that they may or may not be enforceable because they have an effect that maybe they scare an employee later from suing. In my opinion, they send a negative message. Employees have concerns, rightfully so, and maybe this sends the message that you're not taking the proper precautions as an employer. I think it's better to send out notices about the steps you're taking for workplace safety and the policies in place to prevent the spread of the virus. In closing, I would just say, and it's not even lawyerly advice, most of the time the lawyers on this probably know we don't give, it's not even lawyering advice we're giving, it's almost common sense. Just be kind. Your employees are coming back to the workplace potentially, having maybe been ill themselves, having ill family members or friends that they've lost. They may have kids at home with no childcare options. So encourage them to take time off, offer mental health breaks, virtual gatherings, and communicate. Keep the channels of communication open. That, in my opinion, is what avoids lawsuits more than anything else. Regular communication about the policies we've outlined, discussed. Tell your employees those policies that you've put in place because you're concerned about their safety. And if you have a handbook, a really good time to revisit that handbook. If you don't have a handbook, a really good time about thinking about putting one in place. That's me speaking fast and trying to get as much information to you as possible in the time allotted. Thanks for the opportunity, Ashvini, and I'm happy to defer questions to later if I took too much time. That's fine too.
That's fine, Meredith. I think it was much needed. And I just had a quick question for you for later on in Q&A, if you'd be able to address any questions that on damages to any businesses, anything that resulted from the last 3 weeks aftermath in the Bronx and Queens.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. I'll ask for clarification
Afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashvini. Thank you, Meredith. There are so many considerations for our clients and for reopening our own businesses. and guidance out there, but thanks for helping us figure out how to, take a path forward and look at definitely revising our operations and our policies. And so I'm looking forward to being able to hear more about this again down the road in our law series. Thank you so much for sharing where we are today. And I know it's a moving target, so we look forward to keeping in touch with you as well. And we're going to move on now to one of my favorite topics as a telecom technology attorney and talk about cybersecurity during COVID. So Russell Saferstein is a partner in charge at Anshin Digital Risk Solutions, a newly formed subsidiary that delivers and develops technology-driven risk and compliance advisory and analytics-based services. He's a senior executive and a progressive thinker, and successful in bringing non-traditional solutions to an ever-changing work environment by combining audit, accounting, risk, compliance, and technology in successful business engagements. He is a proven risk audit and technology leader with over 25 years of experience advising clients in a wide range of industries, including financial services, healthcare, and management consulting. Russell is a highly regarded and sought-after speaker on issues related to technology, audit, and risk practices. So thank you so much for joining us, Russell, and we'd love to hear what you're seeing right now in terms of making sure that we're minimizing our cyber risk.
Thanks, Rhonda, and I appreciate everyone the opportunity to speak to everyone today. I think really you kind of focus on a couple of things. In my role at Anshin, being responsible for all the risk advisory technology services, I'm also the president of Redpoint, which is a cybersecurity arm. And what happens there, again, we have an engineering group that goes out to, as we kind of say, put out the fires. An organization that's been compromised, has been hacked, and there's some ransomware. That's a team that's going out to go help them. And what I'm going to try to do today is kind of keep it, kind of focused on the business risks and let the group know what does entrepreneurs and law firms need to know about cybersecurity, and focus in on those those elements, because I think that's kind of critical to the thinking that we have today. Is what should we worry about? There's really a growing threat for law firms and small businesses. They're huge targets. First of all, small businesses are attractive targets because they have information that cyber criminals want, and they typically lack security infrastructure for much larger businesses. They're also vulnerable. Almost 90% of small business owners felt like their businesses were vulnerable to a cyber attack. Yet many businesses, they can't afford professional IT solutions, so they're kind of stuck in a hard place where we know we're at risk, but we can't really do a lot about it. And there are a lot of common threats that are out there, and they're always evolving. So even though you may have today the coverage that you need, tomorrow you may not. And I think that's an issue that many are dealing with. There's a lot of risks, and we all see the news about ransomware, about fake news and buzzwords, etc. Smartphones are being used more and more in surveillance attacks. We all rely on this. I joke that my family hates me because I make them change their iCloud and Gmail passwords every month, because our whole lives are there. So if you walk away with this conversation, is change your passwords and make them hard and use some sort of password manager. That's the easiest thing I could tell you. The artificial intelligence and machine learning that are out there are also kind of addressing kind of the cyber risk, but as you can imagine, the bad guys are getting just as good about understanding what's going on in that space. So those are things that, from a high level, high risk level, those are things we want to be worried about. We all hear about the companies that had ransomware, and they come in the morning and their computers are locked down. Well, what you're learning about that is that the increase of ransomware has gone through the roof. Just last year it was $325 billion of damages caused by ransomware in the world. That's a huge number. That's about a 20 times increase over just the last 2 years. So that's a huge change from where we were beforehand. It's in the news every day. Many of us saw, a few weeks ago, one of the new strains of ransomware that went actually after a law firm and got a bunch of law firm data. I think they were in the news, obviously, because they were demanding $42 million before they were going to release Donald Trump's dirty laundry, right? That was a big thing in the news. But there's a lot of other cases out there. The average ransomware is over $1 million. So the days of the $25,000 ransomware are over. We had a company that just late last year, right before Black Friday, they sell goods and services on eBay and Amazon. So smallish company, about 20 employees. They were asking for 108 Bitcoin. If you do the math, that's about $800,000. They did not have cyber insurance. They did not have $800,000 to give to the attackers. And so they were stuck where they had to basically start from scratch, rebuild their entire company. So it's not just buying the computers and networking equipment, et cetera. They had algorithms. They had, a way in which they did business that they've now lost. And, from my perspective is, you don't want to be put in that scenario. You want to be prepared. We always say that what can you do left of boom, right? Left of something bad happening, and taking proactive steps to be secure is critically important because, there's definitely a risk there. A lot of talk especially during this, COVID crisis, what's going on, what are the concerns are. Well, I just ran some stats, got a hold of some stats. 63% of companies had an attack, a ransomware attack during this COVID crisis. The small businesses, that's a huge number. Doesn't mean that they all got through, but it is something that, you have to be, aware of. 65% of CIOs and IT directors felt that security is worse now. And if you want to think about it from this standpoint, very simply, everyone went to the office. There was one internet pipe coming into the office, basically. That was it. They had to cover that. Now everyone's spread out and, working from home. The attack surface has grown tremendously, and organizations have to deal with that. How can they help secure, their organization, secure their employees, to make sure the employees aren't doing anything, erroneously. Another funny story, I spoke to a bunch of CIOs last summer, and after I did my presentation, one of them asked the question, all right, well, what can we do? After you hear that, people are, clicking on links and doing something. And I made a joke. I said, well, just fire all the employees. That's, humans cause most of the problems. Whether, again, they're clicking on a link, they're not updating software. But it really is, from an organization's point of view, those are very easy, weak links that we could shore up and get to be, in a better place. We also, we're on a Zoom meeting right now. We also are in the news about how, security over the collaboration tools is worse now as well. That we also want to be mindful of making sure we have proper controls over, these types of meetings, whether it be Zoom or Slack or AWS or any other tools that we're using to keep our people connected during this time. We want to make sure the controls are in place to ensure that those are done on an encrypted basis. People always ask, Russ, what happens, when a client actually has a cyber event? And I tell the story because it happened. It's a true story. Thursday morning, company comes in, 6:30 in the morning, they go to log in, 8 o'clock, more employees are coming in and their computers are locked out. Everyone is running around trying to figure out what happened. They don't know. The IT people are running around, and finally they realize that they've been, they've obviously been attacked, and there's some sort of ransomware over their systems. So now move forward to, 10 o'clock, they have cyber insurance, they call their cyber insurance broker, who then gets in touch with the claims person at their insurance carrier. And usually by 12 o'clock, I'm usually on the phone. We usually get a text message, an email. Hey, we got a case. Can you guys jump on a call? By 1 o'clock, we're literally on a call with the client or prospect at this point to find out what happened. We want to triage the event. What exactly happened? What's your experiences, et cetera. We spend the afternoon getting paperwork in place because that's what we do, right? It's a lot of it's underprivileged. It's being done, under a breach coach. So you're going to learn some of the terms here. When you have an incident, you have, again, hopefully cyber insurance. So you have insurance carrier, insurance brokers involved. You also hopefully are hiring what we call breach coach, someone in the law profession who actually has experience dealing with these types of attacks. That is critical. The general practitioner who does not have the experience do not know how to properly quarterback these cases. You're going to learn about data privacy. You're going to learn about forensics. You need someone who understands, who the right people are to call, what needs to happen, and how the work that we're doing, the ones that are going to fix the problem, needs to be done on underprivileged. All that happens typically by that night and or early the next day. We are started to, start working on doing some forensics, understanding what's going on within that organization, and helping them get back up and running. It's about a 2-week process, though, at least, before organizations are back up and running after one of these happens. It doesn't happen, overnight. And what you're finding is many of the bad actors are actually in the systems for a very long period of time. The average cases are about 250 days. So think about that. You think you're okay, and you have no idea that someone is lurking in your systems for over 200 days. So it's over 6 months. And that is really critical. They have a better understanding of your network than probably you do. They are looking at your emails, they're going through the processes to see how you talk and how you communicate. And we've seen over the last month or so a huge uptick in business email compromise. That is where obviously someone has either taken over your email due to compromised credentials, or they have spoofed your email. So they're changing certain key letters, and it looks almost to be the same domain, but it's not. And we're seeing that over and over again. We just got a case in just recently where an organization wound up paying several $100,000 to a vendor that really was not being paid. That happens regularly, and we need to understand we need to do certain things to protect ourselves. I think everyone always knew that there was a certain level of spending that they had to have related to cybersecurity. And now with the COVID crisis, that spending dynamic has changed. Those big projects that we were tending to do in 2020 have now been changed, because now we just have to get more collaborative tools. We have to spend money on different things to cover that much larger cases that are out there. So I think it's an important element that we need to kind of be aware of. I always look at it as cybersecurity is a journey, and we want to have a practical approach to cybersecurity, because that's really what we're all trying to get to. In what we've done, we said, listen, there's probably 8 things you probably want to be doing. You want to focus on application controls, what controls we have over the applications that our employees are using. We talked earlier about making sure we're patching our applications. Almost every major software release has a patch schedule to make sure that we're staying up to date on security patches. Same thing with our phones, frankly. As you're updating your phones, you get a new security update, make sure you're going through that process. Making sure we're going through user application hardening. So there are certain systems within a circumstance within each system that we should make sure we're hardening, making sure we're limiting access to certain privileges that are out there. We want to make sure we have multi-factor authentication in place. I know it's a pain, but it's something we definitely should be doing. Daily backups also critically important as well, because that is something that, although, again, if they're lurking in your system, they may have done something to affect your backups, you're in a better situation if you can go down that path. And one last thing, disable Microsoft Office macros. 100% easy thing to do, and just make sure that they're disabled. Then as you kind of move down the journey, you'll go to more penetration testing to kind of see where your weaknesses are, and move that conversation forward. But that is, to me, some of those most basic things that we need to do, that kind of we call essentially, is making sure you have that covered. That will get you further along the path than where most organizations are today. So again, I want to kind of keep it short. As everyone said, I probably have 2 hours of presentation material, but I think it's important that again, we do the most basic things: change your passwords. So.
Russell, thank you. I still practice your tips, and I think you were very thorough, so we can skip the Q&A and welcome other questions later on, especially on downloading Zoom apps and other webinar apps, what to watch out for there. So we welcome questions there. Rhonda, back to you.
Thank you, Russell. And I just have to mention, I know that President Tom Grech wanted to be here today, but I'm going to take the opportunity to just mention one of the great ideas. He's such a visionary that I've heard him speak about before, regarding strengthening the partnerships between the small businesses, especially that are members of the Queen's Chamber, with the banking and legal community. And he always talks about it. Just so happens I'm recalling the issues that we're talking about today. One is around, of course, employment issues that a lot of our small businesses and medium-sized businesses have on a regular basis, and that if we can have a cadre of experts working with the chamber, that can be easily accessed through the chamber for the small businesses. He always talks about that. Also, landlord tenant, and working on, of course, lease renewals and those issues. So I'll put those 2 in one category. Also, accessing loans, which we've been talking about today, and now with PPP, there's probably going to be, at least in the next year or so, more, I think, expertise needed in that area. And I have to say that this growing issue around cybersecurity, I think that we should add that to on his special list, because I mean, just being able to access and understand cyber insurance and all of these new risks that businesses are facing as we look to bring more of our businesses online, create a digital twin, and enter the digital marketplace to expand our businesses. It's something that we're really going to need to, I think, in order to expand safely, to work with people like you, Russell. So thank you so much. And I expect that to see a stronger partnership, particularly in this area where we can, because this is probably one of the newer areas for all of us. And it's more, I would say, complex to navigate as we're still understanding ourselves all of the various risks that our business can face. And so as we're moving online in a more aggressive way now, and so many of our businesses are thinking about, and our law firms are thinking about SEO and website upgrades and how can we create a better presence online. I'm very pleased that we have a few experts who are marketing gurus who work with law firms that are here today to share with us some of their tips and tools as we're looking to expand online. We have Nevlon Duguid, who's the CEO of Proflow Solutions. He works with various technologies, driving startup and corporate operations, leading brand development, project management, strategy, marketing, IT management, innovations, investing, and business development. We also have Michael Pila, who is the founder of Pila Creative Marketing, founded in 2003 to bring the power of online marketing to businesses and nonprofit organizations. He has held creative leadership positions with iVillage and Modern Media, overseeing the creation of websites and interactive advertising for Fortune 500 companies, including Clinique, Ford, IBM, GE, and UBS. And so I've seen Nevlon do incredible things with law firm websites. I'd like to kick it off to Nevlon to share a little bit about his strategy and tips around brand management and marketing. And we'll be so happy to hear from Michael right after that. Thank you, Nevlon.
Awesome. I think I'm going to need Rhonda to introduce me wherever I go in the world from now on also. So guys, today I want us to be kind of like a shock and awe moment as it relates to marketing, right? Here at Proflow Systems, we do one thing only, which is we use systems to help professionals create a steady flow of their dream clients, right? Now, that's a big word, but the best thing I can do is say, if we understand the why we do things, what it'll do is help the how to come in and take care of itself. So I like to ask a question. For everyone who's been home, whose the business took a turn and stopped and had to really sit back and think, how are we going to take this thing that we have now and move into this new arena? Because most people look themselves in the mirror and say, man, you know what, I should have been further along in my life and my business up until now. How does this all relate to marketing? Most people start their business off when they say, you know what, if you build it, they will come. But we find out really quickly that that's not how it works in general business or as an attorney. So what I want to do real quick within this short allotted of time that's been allotted is talk about the foundation that we need to have, so that way when you're engaging a marketing firm or you're trying to have your people within the office help the company grow in its presence online, you as the leader, as the expert, know what to think about. So the first thing I want to talk about is, as a business, as a law firm, you want to be more of a specialist versus versus a generalist. Okay, you want to really be the expert within that space. Okay, that's number one. Number two, you guys can write this down, right? You want to balance the firm's high ticket clients versus your dream clients, and understand the relationship between it, so that way your marketing dollars are spent in that arena. Step number three, you need to have a keen understanding of your acquisition cost per lead and a flow where you see exactly how many leads come into the law firm and what is the closing ratio, if you were, on those leads that come in. I can go on and on about examples and how much it costs per click within different areas of law, but the time would not permit that. But let's say you have a budget and it costs this much per click and these many clicks gets you this amount of leads. You need to know what that ad spend budget is and compare it to the closing ratio and compare it to what I mentioned in step number 2, which is your client value. Next step, number 4, right? You have to be able, as a law firm, to build upon what works for you and what works in your business and take it online and to have a plan with a company in order to dominate your arena. And if this is done correctly, you're going to move from just someone that provides a service into someone that understands story selling, persuasion, building a bridge, building a tribe, becoming a leader, and literally dominating your arena, and not just offering a service, but having a mission where you're called to serve the people who need you. Now, this is more of a high-minded approach to what we talk about in marketing, but we first have to have these type of agreements before you talk about the technical things, which I'm going to give you now. Now, once you have that foundation where you know the end goal in mind, then you can walk backwards. In our one-on-one interviews, we call it the flow walk. First thing you got to do is get really interested in who you've been called to serve. What I mean by that is you need to know your client better than they know themselves. This is the only way your practice has too many leads, too many clients knocking down your door that are your dream clients, the people who you would wake up and work for free if you didn't charge $500 an hour, all right? But let me give you some examples. You need to have a picture of who that dream customer is. You need to know what blogs they read. You need to know what channels on TV they watch. You need to know the forums they visit. You need to understand the keywords and how they search for your services. You need to understand the newsletters they read. You need to understand which platform they're on versus if it's Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. You need to really know your customer, really know your client. Now, once you really get a hold of who they are, you need to then switch the game and understand where they play so that way you can create messaging that will speak to exactly what their problem is. Now, if you can answer their problem online, okay, and drive that customer into your ecosystem, then the world is yours, all right? This is what we do here at ProFlow Systems, which is get a full understanding of where you want to be, right? And then actually work with you on the systems we need to put in place as that bridge to get you there in terms of leads, clients, and the end goal. So what people need to do right now is lock and load on one platform at a time. If it's going to be YouTube, if it's going to be Facebook, if it's going to be Instagram, if it's going to be LinkedIn, if it's going to be Google paid per click or SEO service, as SEO services, right? And you guys need to lock and load on that and build your strategies around it. But to me, none of this works if we don't have the foundation to know exactly where we're going, okay? And that's, to me, is how you find your flow. Now, that's my time. Over to you, Mike.
There we go. Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me here today. Basically, everything Nevlon just said. All right, that's anyhow. So it's just to reiterate a lot of what Nevlon just said. I basically, with everybody being locked down, with basically digital marketing became the only game in town. I'm getting a lot of calls from clients who are scrambling to catch up. And the two things I think that you need when you get into digital marketing is, first of all, clients need to be able to find you, but more importantly, they need to be able to know you before they need you. So my firm puts a lot of energy into content, developing content marketing, and putting that content out where people can find you. So what I have for you today is basically a very simple 5-point plan for building the foundation for a very, very effective digital marketing campaign. First of all, you need to go into this thinking you're taking a multi-channel approach. A great website, nice social media, spiffy email marketing isn't really going to do for you. You need to do all those things in concert. You need to have them integrated, working together. You need a consistent message, a consistent brand. Secondly, as we heard, you need to determine who your target audience is. And there's a thing in marketing called personas, and you basically create fake people. You basically, you take your best customers, or you take your dream customers, as it were, and you lay out who exactly are these people. You give them a name. You figure, where do they live? How much money do they make? But more importantly, what is their problem? What is it they would come to you for? What is it they're having issues with? And what is it you can do to alleviate that problem? And along those lines, you need to create content that speaks to their issues, and you want to speak to them in their own language. You basically want to, I have a saying is you need to go hunting where the ducks are. You need to meet your client where they are comfortable, not necessarily where you are comfortable, not necessarily leaning into your expertise, but focusing on them and their needs. Fourth, you really need to develop a professional website. A lot of companies try to short this, even law firms with a lot of money will basically try to, save some bucks on the website. And you wind up with a poor user experience, very confusing or mundane design, or very, very serious technical issues. The thing to remember about your website is it's often one of the first points of contact your potential customers and clients are going to have with you. And they very well may figure, hey, if these guys can't get a website to work, what are they going to do with my divorce? You know what I mean? Do I really want to take my stuff to these people? Lastly, you want to distribute your content in a number of different places. One of my favorite places to use is email marketing. I'm a big proponent of email marketing. It is, first of all, the only two things you actually own on the internet are your website and your mailing list. Everything else is pretty much under the control of someone else. Facebook changes its algorithms. Twitter may go out of business. Things happen to these other sites, but with your own website and with your own mailing list, those are two things you can take with you anywhere. So especially your mailing list. Your mailing list is basically gold. And the way you manage and segment and build that list will lead to a lot of success for your company. Email marketing is very, very targeted. You can segment that list any way you want to. You can create individual messages for individual clients or individual groups of clients. And you basically get tracking information with email. You know who opens what, if your message is being received. You're not sort of counting on serendipity of people just sort of finding this stuff almost by accident. And finally, again, email is very, very trackable. So I find regular email, creating a regular presence on the net. As I said before, people need to know you before they need you. Creating that ongoing, consistent presence with content that speaks directly to your target market will definitely grow your business. So the thing about digital marketing is it's really no magic bullet. It's very much the kind of thing, it's more of a marathon than a sprint. It's the kind of thing you need to dedicate resources to on a regular basis. But I also tell my clients, consistency is probably the most important thing. So do what you're comfortable doing and do it regularly. You can always add platforms or more content or more people or whatever down the road. But give yourself a basic content campaign that speaks to the needs of your clients, and you're basically set your business up for success. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael, for explaining to us the importance of integrating social media for more efficiency and the importance of keeping our lists up to date. There are a few questions that came in that we'll take them at the end. And Nevlon, thank you for giving us the steps of how to flow walk there. appreciate all you all are doing, and there are a few questions that came in. If you want to take a look at them, we'll send them to you to get answered at the end. But right now, I would like to have Ashvini introduce our Vice President and Regional Manager from M&T Bank.
Hi, yes, thank you so much, Rhonda. So Jeffrey Dorshuk is Administrative Vice President. He started his banking career with M&T in 2003 as a summer teller, which I was very excited to hear when I joined the firm. And he has served in numerous roles with the retail and business banking divisions. He currently serves as the Business Banking Regional Manager overseeing Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, Staten Island, Bronx, and Southern Westchester. As a believer of being active in the community, Jeff sits on the board of directors of Help Us Adopt.org and is a member of the Union League Club of New York. Jeff will discuss building a relationship with your bank, digital invoice and pay, and Nota for lawyers, which is new. Floor is yours, Jeff.
Perfect. Thank you, Ashvini. Another excellent welcome. So nice job continuing the effort there. But good afternoon, everybody. I hope everyone is well. Listening to everyone, I think it's fair to say that there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of pain points out there, and a bank really shouldn't be one of them. Really, when looking at this, before you can even ponder building a relationship with your bank, I think there's a few things you really gotta figure out. You gotta first figure out, am I at the right bank? You may be in a situation where I only use X bank for my personal business and never had a business account. I think it's really important to get an understanding of what you're looking for in a bank. What's important to you in a bank. There's a lot of resources out there available to gain knowledge about banks that may be a good fit for you. And chances are, you know, a lot of these people. These folks are your CPAs. These may be your business attorneys. These may be your peer business owners or friends and family that own businesses and have relationships with banks that could be a great entree for you to get started. But really, when I was exploring this, I really think this is very personal. Even how I look at this, everything I'm going to go through is definitely has my perspective and my lens on it. Because choosing a bank and a banker is a big deal. It's personal. They're going to be involved in the decisions and providing you the advice you're going to need to grow and reach your goals. They're going to be the ones helping consult on the things you may do that are affecting your payroll. Your personal business. This is as personal as it can get. So it's really being informed and going to tackle that in a thoughtful way is really important as a business owner. So, let's take a look at some ways that I think are really good to figure out as a litmus test if you're in a proper bank, or things to consider when you're looking at exploring a new banking relationship. I think first and foremost, it's important to say that every bank is not a fit for every client and every type of business. So understanding that is the bank I'm with a bank that's business friendly. Do they have specialties that maybe speak to my niche or what I do? Do they have expertise with smaller or larger size businesses within my industry? I think it's really important to get an understanding of how the relationship team is structured and if that's a way that can be effective for you. I think, when if I was looking at a bank to bank with as a business owner, I'd want to make sure the person that I'm bringing into my fold, into my business really has decision-making authority, and has some sort of empowerment to act on your behalf within the bank. How do you plan to interact with the bank? I think that's a really important thing. Are you someone that's going to leverage the branches a lot? Is a digital platform more the way you conduct your business? And do those align with the services that are currently being offered at the bank you're at, or are those services offered at the bank you're possibly exploring to bring your business to? I think it's really important to look at a bank's core values and how they show up as a stakeholder in all the communities in which they operate. And the important thing is how does that align with your core values as a business owner and as a person? I think it's really important to make sure that you have a banker that has the acumen and the understanding of your business and of your needs, and really questioning how they add value. And importantly, do you have a connection to this person? I think at the end of the day, a bank relationship is no different than any other relationship. You know, there has to be some type of, you know, connection with that person as well. Other things is in the exploratory process, I think looking at is this bank an SBA lender? Do they have the tools to support a newer or rapidly growing business? And then of course, you know, if you're going to be investing with a bank and bringing them on as a partner to help consult with you, lend to you, handle your deposits and whatnot, understanding the bank's financial health, understanding how the bank has historically behaved both in good times and bad. So once you have a good idea of whether you're in a good spot with the bank you're at, or you know the prospective bank kind of fits a lot of the parameters that you deem important, I think it's time to take some action steps. And I think first and foremost that begins with scheduling an appointment with your relationship manager or the relationship manager that covers your area of where your business may be domiciled. I would say come prepared with questions. This is a time for you to interview your banker and your bank, your prospective bank. You need someone that you're going to be able to trust in both good times and bad. Banking relationships are long-term relationships. You're going to go through different economic cycles with your banker. So making sure it's an institution and this is a person that you feel that will be with you tried and true in good and bad. I think testing their acumen is really important. I think it's making sure your banker has a really good understanding of your business, your goals, your challenges, your objectives, and be clear in how you can get there. Do they have a network of professionals that can be leveraged? Do they work with clients that you can potentially do business with? What does their network bring to you? What's the value add there? I'll say your banker is one of your most important stakeholders in my point of view for an owner in a company. Again, they're going to be advising on really critical things. And looking at overall as a relationship, as you get to know somebody, they're going to get to understand, hopefully through thoughtful questions and dialogue and getting to know you, your goals, understanding your business. And the most successful relationships that I found fall under kind of just three really good things that happens there. I think that there's really, really good communication. Communication through good times and bad, communications about goals, communications about your forward thinking thoughts, a lot of dialogue, open and candid, between the relationship teams, and the management teams of the businesses is crucial. I hit on it just a second ago, but candor is really important. A great banker is not someone that's just going to sit there and tell you everything you want to hear and agree to it. A good banker is going to be candid, is going to use their industry experience, use their expertise in what they do to give you honest and candid feedback as a partner in meeting your overall goal sets. And lastly, they got to care. I think the best relationships are ones where the banker and the bank truly cares about this business, about this individual. They're not a number. They're not client X. This is a story. These are people, and making sure that's mutually reciprocated. I think are the greatest attributes of a relationship that will be mutually beneficial, both in the short term and the long term. I also think looking at how banks are, are operating now, how banks we've all noticed have really stepped in the fast lane as far as innovation is concerned, as we've noticed through the PPP process and a lot of digital transformation that's been going on. The banks are continuing to go on this journey, and this journey is driven by listening to our clients, listening to our stakeholders, and that's a really important engine for how the banks are forward-looking and are going to show up for each and every one of us as business owners and as stakeholders. To give you an example of this, over the last 18 months, the bank has gone on a journey working directly with attorneys to create a completely attorney-centric solution. And through all this research, talking to attorneys from all different varied backgrounds, sizes across the country, demographics, you name it, the common pain point they heard was, I went to law school to be a lawyer, not an accountant, and was largely focused on attorney headaches around IOLTA management. After months of testing and developing a solution for this, Nota was born. Nota is a digital banking solution and tool that helps attorneys manage their IOLTA, tracking money management in real time, and has built-in controls to help prevent overdrafting and commingling funds, all directly within the IOLTA account. The best part is Nota is available to all M&T Bank customers with an IOLTA account at no charge. And there are demos available offline that we would be more than happy to share. With that, I'll stop. Ash, if there's any questions or if you wanted to take them to the end.
I think what we'll do is there is a question in the room, and I think you can respond to that one in the chat. That's to Michelle Blass on the PPP and CARES Act and funds. There is something that I wanted us to touch on briefly, which is invoice and pay. And I know a lot of the bar associations and attorneys have been asking about it as well, just to make sure that it's an efficient system that they have that's married to their current website or independently. So I would encourage everyone, if you do have a question on that, to present it here in the chat or afterwards. Now we will move on, and I know we're running behind on time, so before we wrap up the program, I did want to take some time to introduce Sarah Golan, Associate Broker of Nest Seekers International, the Sirhan team in Brooklyn, who is a serial entrepreneur as well. She co-manages Ryan Sirhan's Bed-Stuy office with husband Joshua Golan. She is an immigrant of Guyana, a Caribbean, and like myself, a graduate of Queens College. Sarah will address how she transformed her business overnight in a few minutes. It might inspire you. Sarah, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ashwini. Thank you everyone for having me on today. So as a broker, a mom, and a business owner, when we went on lockdown back in March, it was kind of hard to transition into how should we move forward with real estate transactions. A lot of our showings that went into the offer stage and contract stage, they all came to a full stop March 15th. And we kind of had to figure out how to move those deals forward. And one of the things we really had to rely on was Zoom, as we're on right now, because we couldn't leave our houses. and our real estate attorney partners and bankers to kind of keep the transaction moving. Attorneys are the ones we rely on so much now to get closings done virtually. They're given a power of attorney. They're able to send documents to clients using DocuSign and getting everything back. Our funding, we're sending out wires. Everything is done virtually. We don't have to sit there for a 3-hour closing. That's all done in the comfort of our homes. But more importantly, we still have to sell real estate, and most of our transactions are done in person. We have to get out there and show properties, and how do you do it safely? Now we have protocols in place where you're not just signing COVID disclosures, but everyone is coming. We're prepared with masks, gloves, and there's a lot of planning that goes into each of these showings. Buildings are being launched. We're doing FaceTime walkthroughs, and we're able to still keep the conversation and bring that meeting of the mind between our sellers and our buyers. So things are moving along. In terms of transforming a business, I'm also part of a restaurant that was completely shut down, and they had to lay off 60 employees with no pay, everyone scrambling to file for unemployment. And that restaurant, it's called Olmsted in Prospect Heights, they were able to transform into a food bank feeding the community, and also a trading post where they're making products and selling it and branding it as an Olmsted brand. So half of the restaurant became a store and half of it a food bank for the community. And they've partnered up with so many great people in the community, and they're doing wonderful things over there. So business has been able to continue, and the restaurants are now reopened, and they're not back at full capacity. No one is indoors eating right now. So they have a backyard. People are able to come and have a meal and a drink and enjoy themselves safely.
Thank you so much, Sarah. We will actually, I am going to just make a slight change and ask Brendan to speak. I believe he has to run to another meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Edge, for putting this together, and thank you to my teammate Jacqueline Donato for facilitating this. So the Queen's Chamber, first of all, welcome. Thank you to M&T Bank and to SBS for sponsoring, and thanks for all of your subject matter expertise. As you can see, this is kind of what we do. We're around for 100+ years, and basically we do 3 things: we network, we educate, we advocate. We welcome all of you. If you're not already members of the Chamber, talk to me offline. My name's Brendan Levy. I'm the Business Development Manager. Tom Gretsch sends his regards, was unable to join us today. Last year, before COVID, we ran over 340 events. If you can imagine, 340 events. That would be sometimes 2-3 a day. They could be a dozen people in our conference room with attorneys, educating HR directors on the importance of safe onboarding practices to avoid litigation, all the way up to our biggest event, which is normally held at Citi Field, a Queens Business Expo, where we have over 2,000 people, and we'll have Doc Gooden signing autographs and have fun with it, right? But we're really very serious. We take our networking very seriously, and I want to announce that we have launched a Bankers and Lawyers Committee, which is now active and has done a few events. So I welcome you to contact me offline. The Queen's Chamber number, if you do not have it, is 718-898-8500. My extension is 128, and my email is blevy, I spell it L-E-A-V-Y, as you see on the screen, blevy@queenschamber.org. Talk to me about how you can get engaged at the Chamber. I think all of you know we're a nonprofit membership organization, so we appreciate your support. It's kind of how we keep the lights on, and it's not without its challenges at this point in time, and COVID, obviously, to sign up members. Clearly, it's a challenging time. But we've switched our mission really to triage and help the small businesses. We've been doing webinar after webinar on PPP loans. We've done them in English. We've done them in Spanish. We've done them in Mandarin to serve our multicultural population here in Queens. And I think I was remiss. I saw something on this when this was being promoted, that something about Caribbean Heritage. Now, Caribbean Heritage Month ended yesterday, right? It was June. Is that correct, Ash?
Yes, but we can still cover it
So I
because
think that as the most diverse county, on earth, Queens by far, and I see some Caribbean faces right on the screen here. Happy Caribbean Heritage Month, even if I'm a day late. I'm part of that heritage because my wife hails from Caracas, Venezuela, which juts out into the Caribbean, just so you know. But listen, we're here to assist you. We're here to help you promote your businesses, showcase you as subject matter experts. Talk to me offline. I don't want to keep you because we ran over. Rhonda, thank you for moderating. And I want to thank our chairman of the board, Tom Santucci, for joining us. I think he had a run, but thank you all. Please reach out to me if you'd like to either join the chamber, support the chamber, get involved, and elevate your visibility, and get involved in the Bankers and Lawyers Committee as well. I'll talk to you about all of our committees. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brendan. And that was actually part of my closing here, is that I wanted to recognize Caribbean Heritage and also Pride Month. And I know we missed it by a day, but we wanted to put together a webinar to recognize everyone, as many of the corporations were acknowledging Juneteenth, and just make sure everyone is always included. I wanted to just let you know that the Chamber of Commerce was instrumental in helping me to execute this. And if there are law firms and businesses trying to put together something to market their business, I have to tell you, they were just absolutely a value point for me on a daily basis. And I didn't realize it until, I realized some of the technologies that I didn't have available to me, because sometimes what happens when you're planning a webinar, different organizations have different systems. And if you can't find a way to put together a webinar and marry all the systems, and sometimes you have to leverage your Chamber of Commerce's and the business support organizations. So I can't stress that enough. I also want to thank Sharon Kun of the South Asian and Indo-Caribbean Bar Association in Queens for helping me with the foundation and rolling this out, and also Marie Elena First for also helping me to get my way moving around all the different bars quickly in under 2 weeks. Thanks to all the organizers. Jacqueline Donato was phenomenal. I don't know how you do it, but you are phenomenal. We encourage, again, your support of the chamber, become a member, and network. Take screenshots of all the registrants if you can. See who's in there. I know there are a ton of insurance agents, insurers. There are people who could help you take photographs, upload and upgrade your profiles, which is needed right now. If you don't realize it, there are people like the technologists and the marketers who can help you marry your SEO needs with the social medias, which is, I guarantee you, going to be a major goal for many companies going forward. And find out if your websites are still current and reach out to those professionals. That being said, I think we've covered just about everything here. I know there are realtors listening in, property managers from all over. So please take screenshots again, reach out to each other, and network with us as well. We're available. Rhonda, do you have any comments before we close and open up a final Q&A? I don't think we have time, but we will certainly take the questions in the chat if you can put it through.
Thank you. I think we should leave the time for any of the questions if there was time for a question or two, but if not.
Okay. Do we have any questions from anyone? I know we have a few in the chat room, which we will address. Jacqueline, just wanted a technical, how long will this stay open since we're a little bit over time?
It'll stay open until we close it.
Thank you.
Good answer.
With that said, I'm going to depart. Thank you all for participating. I hope you got value out of that. Thanks for joining us. Well.
I will ask the panelists who did speak if you could take a quick look through at the chat and make sure that all the questions that were posed to you were answered before we sign off.
So I did see there was one question concerning sole proprietorships with regard to the 60% rule. And I believe the answer to that question is yes. You're going to go into the owner compensation section, which is line 9 of Schedule A, and then the total for payroll costs, which includes that, gets moved forward to line 1. And then to determine eligibility for forgiveness, in the application, you're basically taking 60% of line 1, so it is part of that computation, the Schedule C sole proprietor piece.
I saw a question directed to Jeff. Jeff, if you're still on and want to address that question, it was from Mitchell on if M&T Bank ran out of PPP money, and if so, how soon after the CARES Act passed?
That's a really good question. So no, the bank did not run out of money. It's the funds as part of the CARE Act were back through the U.S. Treasury through the SBA. So it was not a matter of the banks running out of money. The bank's portal at M&T was open to our existing clients, clients that had a business account with the bank open prior to April 5th. And what we saw was on day one, about 26,000 applications, or roughly, on day one, with a trailing effect going down through Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And again, you saw that on the last few rounds. So all our clients at the bank that wanted to apply and had the intent to apply did apply, and all of the ones that were eligible received financing. And I could say that for 100% down here in the New York City region.
Congratulations. That's so excellent, Jeff.
Yeah, it was great. It was a feel-good story for us because we're all human, and every application is a life, is multiple paychecks and things like that. So we were just happy to be able to play a part.
And unfortunately, a lot of our small and medium-sized business clients did not have business accounts, so they were not prioritized by some of the banks, for loans. Yep. And so I think that's a lesson to be learned, and exactly what you said, how personal that relationship is, and which is why I think a lot of small and medium-sized businesses keep some of their business funds, close to their personal accounts. Yep. I think now is the time to revisit that and be prepared for when there are opportunities like this, that a major federal program that could have been taken advantage of. And so thank you for I thought that the way that you explained the way the banking relationship should be, and it was just very compassionate, and I hope that we can encourage our clients to look at that route going forward.
Thank you.
I agree with you, Rhonda, and there's certainly a lot of banking partners that supported clients in the community, and we certainly did reach out to even our peers in other banks to support clients when there was a restriction on having an account with the bank. So I just wanted to thank all those banks and our partners in the community for doing a phenomenal job in helping clients through the process. We are trusted advisors, and we'll always do the right thing. That being said, I know there's another question in here. If we can get to it, it was addressed to Michael.
I saw a question about spamming. I guess how not to be a spammer if you're doing bulk emails. Basically, make sure, first of all, don't ever buy an email list. Build your own. You don't know anything about those people on the list. They may be dead for all you know. There could be bad emails. You're just basically buying, sight unseen. You don't know what you're getting. So even though it takes more time, build your own list through your social media, through having a link on your website, give away a downloadable publication or something in exchange for an email. There are a lot of strategies for building your list. Every time you go to a network event or something, collect business cards. When we get back to collecting business cards, collect business cards. So the first rule of thumb is do not buy a list, create your own. Secondly, have an opt-out on all the emails you send. Give people the opportunity to unsubscribe. Because basically you become a spammer because enough people complain about getting your emails. So don't give them a reason to complain. Give them an opportunity to opt out. And when they do opt out, leave them alone. And then thirdly, make sure you're providing content that is relevant and useful. There's nothing worse than getting a slew of emails about something you pretty much couldn't care less about. It just clogs up your box. And again, in retaliation, people will basically label you as a spammer. So there are a couple of other strategies, but those are the three big strategies. Build your own list, give people a way out, and provide them, as always, with content that is relevant and useful and especially interesting. I think entertainment goes a long way in digital marketing.
Hey, Mike, I'm gonna add on to that, because sometimes we as marketers, we believe it's so that everyone's on the same page and they actually know what we're talking about. I think what the person was asking is they believe in their head that they're gonna take their email, their current email, and they're gonna send out, newsletters and lists, right? So you did a great job by explaining that. I just want to add, guys, there are email services out there that act as the conduit or the client that will send the emails out in bulk a lot for you, with using everything that Mike talked about, like MailChimp, SendGrid, and a few others.
I actually have a relationship with Constant Contact, but yes, that goes without saying. Do not send bulk emails out through your normal email client. Most of them will only let you send 50 emails at most. And you do that more than once and you can wind up losing your email account. You can usually get locked out from your email account, because it's the easiest way to get labeled as a spammer is just do it yourself. So it goes without saying almost. Use one of the commercial services and you'll be fine.
And I think I didn't see any additional questions, but I do know if anyone needs any tutorial or any additional webinars for support, Anshin does run a lot of their webinars complimentary on LinkedIn. If you don't have a LinkedIn profile, I suggest you get one, because it is more than time to have one, and possibly invest in a navigation to find leads. I use it almost daily for finding connections and getting to the right person that you need to contact with immediately. And most people are responsive, so there's no need to be fearful of that. I think we've handled everything. We're all available to support you. Send us questions. We're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, some of us, I believe. I think the trend is now that Facebook is picking up, so that's a new trend.
Now might be the time to advertise on Facebook because no one else is.
It's something that's certain to definitely explore, and reach out to the professionals who are trying it already or tried it a few months ago. And if you need any connections, we can certainly connect you with someone. I have a lot of resources available, and also my peers in the industry. So I'm happy to make connections, whether it's for PPE supplies, anything that you need to reopen or restart your business in a safe way. We've made a lot of these connections during the past few months. So I'm happy to support and put you in touch with anyone. Thank you everyone on the panel. I'm glad you're part of my network, and I hope I'm part of your permanent network going forward.